Wow, this is a long opening intro. All right, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. This is the Fans First Sports Network. We're gonna fade that out. That's not our new theme. That's just a theme because I'm in the wrong studio here, but it doesn't matter. That's the fourth wall being broken down. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. I am here with the Fans First Sports Network, also the Steel Curtain Network, and with my good friends, one from the American Football Conference, one from the National Football Conference. These two are 1-1 when it comes to Super Bowls, but guess what? They also they're not as really good as Pittsburgh in Super Bowls. Well, actually, Hogan is.
Whoa. Pump the brakes on that, mister. Come on.
We only have one, so I can't say anything.
Okay,
yeah.
Neither of those teams have ever beaten Pittsburgh in a Super Bowl. The New England Patriots, Hogan from Foxborough Frenzy, and Reed from Broad Street LinkedIn here on the Fans First Sports Network. Wherever you download your favorite podcast, that is the place to go. Now, our good friend Jess Place of Broncos Mile High, he is taking the week off. It's his anniversary, so kudos. Anybody that can stay married for more than 9 months is probably better than most of us. So with that being said, no, actually, all happily married guys except for the Bachelor. We've got the Bachelor at the bottom here of the screen. Reed, you are a Bachelor, right?
I am a Bachelor, eligible.
All right, well, I am. If you ever do get married, I am a licensed officiant, so I can go ahead and marry anybody.
You want to make the trip?
I'd make the trip, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Unless you're like, Bryan, we need to do it at Lincoln Financial. I'm like, no, I'm not getting my butt kicked or wearing a green tuxedo for you. All right, so with that being said, let's cut the fun and have more fun, but talking about these games. Week 3, interesting week. So week 2 was a lot of upsets. And then there were more upsets in week 3. There were some comebacks squashed at the end. A lot of interesting stuff. A lot of scores to go through. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. We are going to go back, and I hate to do this to you, but Hogan, you want to just make a quick comment about Pats Jets? Jets 24, Pats 3.
The quickest I can possibly do on that was it was a slog fest for us Patriots guys out there. 3 points, offenses in disarray. Jacoby is not getting it done. They went to Drake May towards the end of the game there. He got slammed around. Looked like he had a little promise throwing the ball. Again, wasn't against the Jets starters. Jets, on the other hand, look like they're starting to put the pieces together and becoming a real team. Aaron Rodgers had flashes of his old MVP self from back in the Green Bay days, getting all guys in there. Breece Hall looked good. His backup there, Braylon Allen, the youngest kid in the NFL right now, scoring touchdowns and playing great. And then, it's just going to be interesting going forward to see if the Patriots can learn from their mistakes and if the Jets are going to continue to have the sustained success they had against them on Thursday night.
Reed, did you watch that game?
I did. The Pats O-line is just brutal. I mean, Brissett was getting beaten around back there. May was getting beaten around out there. And, hey, Rodgers was looking spry. He was looking spry. He was making some good throws. He was moving. He was scrambling as well. So, like Hogan said, I think the Jets are starting to put it together a little bit here.
They definitely are, and this is not a team for 2024, but I like what Gerard Mayo is doing in New England. I think that after 20-some years, actually 24 years of victories there in New England, you got to go ahead and dig it up and plant some new seeds, and I really think that's what they're doing, so I would not be too despondent, Hogan. I know you're not, because you're one of the best analysts we have here at Fans First Sports Network, and you get it. But I will tell you what, I don't think the Patriots are going to be gone for long.
No, I mean, for sure they're on a right path, and I think Mayo has a good grasp of the players that he's got in the facility right now, what they're able to do. I think he's getting the most out of the guys that are currently on the team. Like Reed alluded to, the offensive line is just a hot mess right now, and it's not going to get any better in season because of who you have on the roster. Going forward, it's definitely going to be an area to address, whether it's through the draft, free agency, trades, whatever they need to do. But I do think, for the first couple of weeks, they showed a lot of promise by beating Cincinnati the way they did and competing with the Seahawks. there's a lot of potential and a lot of promise to go forward on this. And objectively, as a football fan, I understand every team has its ups and downs. Fingers crossed, maybe this week 3 was just a down week for them. So, like I said, going forward, hopefully it's only good news, but we'll see.
Yeah, man, you were so spoiled, like a lot of fans. I mean, to go all those years just being that great, man. It's weird when you're seeing the downside of things, but keep your head up. And this is my spoiler. I think this is going to happen. They're going to end up trading, not this year, but they will end up trading for Michael Mayer, the tight end, who I think could be really good because you've got Mayo, May, and then Mayer. I mean, it's just got to happen. Mother may I. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about your team, Reed, because they're not next on the list. It was not pretty. It was not easy. It's like 2 a.m. at the bar and saying, that skank will do. The Eagles win. The Eagles win 15-12 over the Saints. Talk about it.
I mean, again, much more in-depth coverage on my channel, Broad Street LinkedIn, but I'll try to be quick here. Defense won us this game. Shout out Vic Fangio for adjusting after we got gashed by the run the first 2 weeks. We saw some 5-2, 6-1 fronts. Zach Bond, a player I was so skeptical about being a starter. Revenge game against the Saints, 13 tackles. I think he's top 3 in the NFL in tackles right now. Jalen Carter won us this game. I mean, two balls batted down at the line on big plays, 2 third-down tackle for losses. C.J. Gardner-Johnson with some big plays on third down as well. Jalen Hurts needs to take care of the football. Bottom line, interception that, not entirely his fault. Smitty has to run that route a little sharper, and then the fumble as well. But Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert. Saquon's our hero. He didn't run the ball in the first quarter. I have a bone to pick with Kellen Moore about that. But when you give him the ball, he just works magic. I mean, 17 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert was invisible last week. You would think with A.J. Brown out, we would incorporate him. This week, they answered that. Dallas Goedert, 10 receptions, 170 yards. And like I said, the run defense was great. Alvin Kamara had 26 carries for 87 yards. But, this Saints offense, going back to last year, it scored 40-plus points in 3 straight games. And to hold them to 12 points, I got to tip my hat to Vic Fangio there.
Hogan, do you get the feeling that Aiden Reed is stalking Mr. Bond because he talks about him every single week? I mean, seriously, every week. I know he said his name before he mentioned Saquon Barkley.
He's definitely got pictures of him or something. I agree with you, but
it's like the De Niro movie, The Fan. I mean, it's like something's happening here.
The reason why is because I expect that out of Saquon, and I was so skeptical about Zach Bond coming in, and he just blows me away. He's all over the field making tackles, but maybe I should keep that for more of the Philly audience because I'm sure most people don't even know who Zach Bond is. So.
Well, we do now because of Broad Street LinkedIn's Aiden Reed, everybody. Good job, Hogan. And my gosh, Saquon was not the hero Monday night, Hogan, because he clearly dropped that ball. And then this week, I mean, he had some redemption. If you draft him on your fantasy team, you're absolutely loving this guy, which I did in one league, 41 some points, I think, for me today. But the Eagles are a weird team here because they can put on a lot of points and then they can turn around and win a field goal fest, or just like whatever this was today. Hogan, what are your thoughts on the Eagles?
They're a dangerous team, and this goes back to a couple of years ago where you look at what they do. They're able to beat you in a scrummy game like this, defensive battle where they're going to squeak it out, and then they can also light up the scoreboard. Week 1, we saw Green Bay. They took care of business. I mean, yeah, Jalen Hurts, like you said, Reed, has to get rid of the silly interceptions or turnovers, but they put up over 30 points in week 1. Last week, obviously, we saw how the way things ended. They still had a chance to win that game. And then today, the biggest takeaway that I have from this, they didn't score in the first 3 quarters. And then Saquon ripped off the huge run that he did to give him the lead. The Saints answered right back. And then with just over a minute left, Saquon got in the end zone again. So they can prove that they can win at different assets and facilities of the game where you can't blow them out. You can't keep them close. They're going to find a way to scrap with you. And Philly's just a dangerous team overall, especially when they're firing on all cylinders.
And if I could jump in one more time, I just wanted to make one
Tell us more about Zach Bond.
This was such a frustrating game to watch because the Saints had 219 total yards. The Eagles had 460 total yards of offense. And like Hogan said, we didn't score for the first 3 quarters. And the turnovers killed us. Nick Sirianni is allergic to kicking field goals. I kind of understand the first one going forward on 4th. It's a toss-up. The second one, I would like your guys' opinion on this because I don't know if I'm going crazy. 13 seconds left in the half, 4th and 1. Even if you convert, you have one low probability shot at the end zone. You get the ball back in the second half. Why would you not kick the field goal there, take the points, and go into the halftime tie? Am I crazy, or is that just a no-brainer?
Part of me kind of wonders, like, if it's the Dan Campbell effect in the NFL, where you're seeing a lot of coaches kind of do that crazy stuff. But again, to your point, there was no need to do that at that point of the game. Put points on the board and get the momentum going into halftime, like you're talking about. I think a lot of time coaches kind of either or overcoach or overthink themselves. And not to be that guy, I think Sirianni does that a lot to the Eagles team, where he just, like you said, Saquon is the guy right now, and he didn't run the ball once in the first quarter. So, like, just
Unbelievable.
do the simple stuff that wins you games. It's not, stop overthinking it and just do what you got to do.
Yeah.
All right, let's move ahead, and we're going to find out about Aiden's thoughts what would happen if Zach Bond was a Houston Texan or a Minnesota Viking, because that's what we're going to talk about next. Actually, no, this is really weird to me. I got to bring this up. We just had an AFC matchup. We had an NFC matchup. The next 10 games are all AFC versus NFC. Seems to feel like a record to me. I mean, this is a lot, guys. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, that is. I wouldn't know for sure, but that seems very odd.
Yeah, I'd like to check the stats on it, but I don't have the time nor the inclination to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and talk about the Texans and the Vikings. Hogan, your thoughts, because for me, Vikings 34, Texans 7. This is the upset of the week.
Yeah, for sure. This one kind of caught me off guard, especially with how fast the Vikings got off to the early lead that they did, where it was kind of like, okay, you expected there to be points scored in the game, but the fact that the Texans only put up 7 and CJ Stroud did not look like his normal self out there. Stephon Diggs, of all people, trying to get that offense going is kind of crazy to me, where Diggs has the reputation he did from Buffalo days. But yeah, I mean, Stroud, 215 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Diggs was the focal point of the offense, 10 catches, 94 yards, but it wasn't enough to overcome what the Vikings did on the field. Sam Darnold is a man reborn. I mean, it's something about the water they must do in New York that just hunkers these guys down, and then once they leave, they flourish. Between him and Geno Smith, it's a miracle to see what they're doing. Sam Darnold, only 181 yards, but 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Aaron Jones got in the mix, 102 yards rushing, and then Justin Jefferson scoring yet another touchdown, 81 yards. The Vikings are looking like the real deal, kind of like we were talking about the Saints last week, where we were sitting there going, are these guys the real deal? The Vikings certainly seem like they're the real deal in a year that I think myself and a lot of different people thought they would be in a rebuild year for, but they look good, and I'd be nervous to play them if I'm an opposing team right now.
All right, Reed, I want to ask you this question because I'm looking at what Sam Darnold has to go ahead and contend with, and it's really not a lot of offensive firepower. Of course, Justin Jefferson's an all-pro and he's all-world, and we know that. But the supporting cast around him, as far as receivers go, it's really odd. So I'm going to go ahead and list everybody who caught a pass from Sam Darnold today. Justin Jefferson, of course, 6 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. Aaron Jones, who we expect to do well. I mean, out of the backfield, a fantastic running back in Green Bay. Now he's over in Minnesota. Not only did he have a good day on the ground, 102 yards, 19 carries, he had 46 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown. Now, here's the rest. Jalen Naylor with a touchdown. Brandon Powell, Trent Sherfield Sr., Johnny Munt, and Josh Oliver. I mean, wow. That's not.
Yeah, they're definitely missing Jordan Addison a little bit, but hey, Jalen Naylor, 2nd week in a row with a touchdown. You got to be excited for him, the rookie, if you're a Vikings fan. And yeah, Sam Darnold taking care of the football, the yards don't blow you away, but I actually think that the key to this Viking success is Brian Flores. I think through 3 weeks, he's the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. Yes, he played the Giants week 1, held them to 6 points. The Niners looked so uncomfortable last week, holding to 17, holding CJ Stroud and this offense to 7 points. I mean, Brian Flores is dialing up these crazy blitzes and coverages that are just shocking these quarterbacks, and they look lost out there. So for me, the biggest reason for the Vikings' success so far is Brian Flores, and they even lost their best defensive player, Danielle Hunter, to the Texans. So pretty wild from Flores, in my opinion.
And Hogan and I both know the magic of Brian Flores, having him in both Pittsburgh and New England, respectively. Just a very good defensive mind. One of those guys that if he's never a head coach again, he could be a Hall of Famer assistant coach. And I actually think there should be a Hall of Fame assistant coach wing. And I actually think there should be a wing for backup quarterback, but that's for another time, gentlemen. All right, let's go to the Giants and the Browns, a game that made me happy because I hate Cleveland. And so here we go. 21-15, the New York Giants getting that win, scoring all those points in the first half, getting shut out in the second half, but still holding on to win. Malik Neighbors went nuts. Aiden Reed, you got to deal with Malik Neighbors coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm worried about the Giants, but I have a feeling Neighbors is going to torture me for years to come. He looks phenomenal out there. 8 catches, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, getting it done in the red zone. That one catch, his first touchdown catch. Oh, my goodness. And he also went up and mossed one of the corners early in the first quarter, but unreal game from him. Singletary has been playing well. 16 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Daniel Jones, not bad. 24 for 34, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think the bottom line from this game is the Deshaun Watson experience is over. I think you just have to bench him at this point, get Jameson there. The way he takes sacks is just, it's mind-boggling. Like he'll try to scramble, but he just gets caught every time. I don't know. I would be so frustrated if I was a Cleveland Browns player. And you even saw coming out last week and this week with O-linemen, like, Deshaun will try and help him up. They're swatting his hand array, or Amari Cooper rolling his eyes in the huddle. Mentioning Amari Cooper, though, he did have a great game, 7 receptions, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Browns couldn't get it going on the ground. And if you're relying on Deshaun Watson's arm, I don't think you're going to go too far, 37 pass attempts. So I'm not too worried about the Giants, but I think this more speaks volumes to how bad the Browns are with Deshaun Watson in.
Hogan, before I get your comments on this, I have to mention this like I do every week because last year's Defensive Player of the Year and this year's he's already been voted Defensive Player of the Year. Myles Garrett, 1 tackle, no assist, no sacks.
I think he got hurt too, did he? Or maybe just banged up.
Well, I tell you what, it doesn't matter. He could miss every single game. He's the Defensive Player of the Year because the NFL said so. It's my Myles Garrett bias. I will say that. If it was Micah Parsons, I wouldn't have had a problem. If it was anybody else, but it's Myles Garrett. They predisposed. They're like, this. He's got to win one of these days. We're just gonna give it to him this year, and TJ Watt can just go. He could go just fly up a tree. They don't. No one cares about TJ Watt. That's okay. He's half a sack away from 100. That's okay, but Myles Garrett's all world. All right, that's not a very objective. That's not good hosting, but I don't care. Hogan, what's your thoughts about Myles Garrett being great?
I mean, he's a phenomenal player. I will grant you that.
We just lost Hogan.
Oh no. Hold on. Let me say something. I think he's a great player in regards to what he brings to the table and what he does on the field week in and week out. Is he Defensive Player of the Year this year? Absolutely not. I still hold fast to Aiden Hutchinson as of right now. Like I said, putting Detroit on his back last week with 4.5 sacks, but I think it's interesting to see what Cleveland's going to be able to do defensively going forward, especially where they had the experiment last year where they had Jadeveon Clowney on the other side of Myles Garrett, and they were able to take advantage of a lot of quarterbacks and I think surprise a lot of people with their defensive play that got them into the playoffs last year, especially with Joe Flacco. And kind of going off of what Joe Flacco brought to them last year, like Aiden talked about, the Deshaun Watson experiment has to be over at this point. When you have Joe Flacco coming off the couch 2 weeks prior to leading a team to the playoffs the way he did. And you got Deshaun Watson making the money he's making, and as young as he is, and as much talent as he is, and they still can't succeed. I'm out on Cleveland going forward until they figure out what they're doing offensively. Defensively, I think they'll be okay at the end of the day, but offensively, I have no faith in them.
I digress. That is a good defense in Cleveland, and Myles Garrett is one of those players that I will give him all the credit in the world. I just like to jest on that. But no, I disagree with both of you guys. I think that because I'm not objective, I think they should keep Deshaun Watson in, and in fact, I think they should extend him even more with with 235 million guaranteed, even more on top of this, and cripple the rest of their franchise. That was such. You guys have to understand when you deal with the Cleveland Browns. And I tell you what, one of my favorite fan bases are the Cleveland Browns. Just the fact is that they're just hopeful every year, and they're not spoiled like Hogan. They're not spoiled like Brian. They're not Reed spoiled too, because I mean, even though they choke in the Super Bowl a lot and won once, I mean, they still go ahead and what you have in that team, and you expect greatness out of that team. They just won a playoff win, and you realize what would happen on the shores of Lake Erie if they actually got to the Super Bowl. It would be amazing, but they keep on making these Cleveland Browns moves. And these Cleveland Brown moves, I mean, Deshaun Watson, when Pittsburgh saw that, where a lot of fan bases, I'm sure Baltimore did the same thing. A lot of fan bases look at that and go, oh no, they just got Deshaun Watson. We're like, oh yes, they just overpaid for Deshaun Watson.
They should have kept Baker.
Oh my gosh, with what Baker's doing, yeah. So yeah, it's ponderous. You mentioned Aiden Hutchinson, so let's go to that game next. Aiden Hutchinson did have a sack today. He is up to 6.5, and Detroit went to a very tough place to play. Arizona is a tough out. I'm telling you that right now. They're 1-2, but they are a tough team to play. Detroit 20, Arizona 13. Take it away, Reed.
Yeah, I think everyone expected this game to be a shootout, and it looked like it was going to be a shootout. First 3 possessions, 3 touchdowns, but like you said, I was high on the Cardinals this year. They just died. Their offense sputtered, and this was a defensive game at the end of the day. And you saw the Lions come back to their core beliefs here by running the football. Montgomery and Gibbs both had great games. David Montgomery, 23 carries, 105 yards and a touchdown. Gibbs, 16 carries, 83 yards. They got away from the run last week. They controlled the clock today. When you control the ball for that much, have that much time of possession, I think it puts more stress on the other team to feel like we need to score now instead of playing to your game. But very interesting to me. I really thought this was going to be a shootout, and it looked like it was, but at the end of the day, it ended up being a defensive battle.
All right, Hogan, let's talk about this defensive battle. Let's talk about Detroit only winning by a touchdown, winning 20-13, but actually showing me so much more than if they would have blown out the Cardinals. I really think that this team is learning how to win tough games now, and they're learning how to play blue collar football as well. I'm really impressed with Dan Campbell's team. I thought this was a dominating 20-13 win.
Yeah, no, Detroit is absolutely one of those teams that should be in the talk for Super Bowl contenders, this year and possibly going forward, depending on the health of their guys and how they're able to keep that team together and cohesive. The biggest thing today for me was seeing the hook and ladder play for the touchdown was just an awesome. I haven't seen it pulled off that successful since Fresno. Was it Fresno? Not Fresno. Whenever Oklahoma lost in that bowl game, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen with Boise State.
Boise State.
Yes. The Statue of Liberty and hook and ladder to shock the world. But yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs and St. Brown pulled that off miraculously. And I find Gibbs' stat line to be fascinating. Where Reed, you talked about his rushes. He has 0 receptions, but 20 receiving yards and a touchdown. I find that awesome because of that play alone. But regardless of that, what you were talking about, Brian, is absolutely correct. Where Detroit is that team that's smash mouth. They're going to punch you in the mouth and they're just going to stare you down and they're going to like say, bring it. And whether they lose or win, they're going to give you everything they got every game. And Dan Campbell is absolutely one of the best coaches in the league right now. And Christ, he could make me go out there and play for him the way he motivates those guys. So as long as he keeps that going, it's going to be a great time in Detroit for a while going forward.
Yeah, and he's got cojones like crazy. I love the kind of stuff that he does. I love going for two as much as he does. Now, even though John Harbaugh does the same thing and has done it longer, I just bemoan him just because he's John Harbaugh and it's the Ravens. But Dan Campbell, you gotta love what you're getting with the Detroit Lions right now. That team, that's a very dangerous team. Let's go ahead. The hook and ladder. I just want to bring this up to you guys. One of the greatest football games that I had ever seen as a youth. I'll never forget. It's you've probably seen highlights of it because it was way before both of you. I know that, but in January of 1982, the 1981 season, it was a divisional playoff game between the Miami Dolphins and the San Diego Chargers. And this game went into double overtime, I believe it did. And it was, I think, a 41-35 game. David Woodley throws a pass to Tony Nathan. Tony Nathan, I forget who he tosses it to, but it was the first time I ever saw the hook and ladder. And I try to emulate that in backyard football for years. I always called it the Tony Nathan. It was just one fantastic play. It was cool to see it again. That's what you get with Detroit. Detroit does not care. They're going to pull everything out. I mean, you're going to see a fumble Ruski in Detroit pretty soon. I fully believe that, and I love it. And that's what the game's about. Be innovative, be cool. Let's go ahead and talk about this game. This is the Jess Place Memorial game. Well, he's not. I mean, he's still with us, but his team won, and he's not here to celebrate. Jess Place is not here to celebrate. The Broncos 26, the Buccaneers 7. Was this a shocker, Hogan?
This was definitely a shocker, and I shout out to my coworker TJ who asked me for my pick'em guaranteed win this week, and I gave him the Buccaneers. So I apologize to you, TJ. I did not see this coming. I don't think a lot of people saw this coming. However, the Broncos got it done by some way, some miracle. Bo Nix didn't turn the ball over, and I think that's the biggest thing with the rookie quarterbacks right now is just eliminating the mistakes and not turning the ball over. Threw for 216 yards, no touchdowns, but no interceptions. But on the run side of it, he likes to run the ball as well. 47 rush yards and 1 touchdown. And there really wasn't much of stat lines for anybody else on the Denver offense. They ended up kicking 4 field goals, and it was enough to take care of business. On the other side, Buccaneers did not look like they're themselves the last couple weeks where they shocked everybody, went to Detroit and beat Detroit. Again, that's why I told TJ, go with the Buccaneers. They're going to be a solid win this week. Mayfield just looked lost out there. Only 163 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And then I have his name in here as Godwin, but I still like Slotwin, right? Wasn't that right last week?
Oh yeah, lives there. Slotwin.
He was the only one that got on the board for the Bucs there. 53 yards and a touchdown. The rest of the Bucs offense just was a no-show today. So kudos to the Broncos getting their first win with Bo Nix over there, and hopefully the Buccaneers can figure out what went wrong and fix it by next week.
Are you on the Bronco train, Reed?
I can't say I am. Bo Nix did look good. He took care of the football. Nothing crazy, but he did show some good moves with his feet. I just wanted to say I hate this result. We have the Bucs next week, and I hate playing teams after a bad loss like this. They're going to have a fire lit under their ass. They're going to be ready to play. So selfishly, I'm talking about the Eagles for the Broncos Bucs recap. But Cortland Sutton had a decent game, 7 receptions, 68 yards. But the Broncos got hot early. They got that pick off Baker Mayfield, marched that down to make it 14-0. Never really looked back. The Bucs never really got their footing underneath them. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm buying on the Broncos. Sorry, Jess. Maybe if he was here, I'd toss him a bone. But since he's not here,
it's Jess. You would be screwing with Jess as much as you possibly could, because that's what we do with Jess, and Jess does it back to us tenfold. I really miss him tonight too. That's my boy.
This is the week. I mean, Raiders lose, Chargers lose, Chiefs are losing at the half. This was just his week. I don't know how many of these he's gonna get. So
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about this next game here, because I wasn't going to go here, but you just said something to me about your opponent next week. And we, as soon as the Steeler game ended, my son is new. He's 17, but he's just getting into it now. So he's kind of learning some stuff, and we have people over like we always do. And there's some different people that haven't been to my house yet. And after the game, they show we're gonna go live to Chicago and Indianapolis, and everybody's rooting for Chicago, and I'm like, no, you got to root for Indy if you're a Steeler fan. You cannot go to their house next week and that team be 0-3.
yeah.
And they didn't understand it. And one of my buddies who's always there said, Brian's just superstitious. That no, it's not superstition.
No, that's
It's
a
just
real
you
thing.
don't want to play a team that coming off not just a bad loss or being 0-3 searching for that big win, that first win. You don't want to face a hungry team that's been kicked like a dog.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that team next.
100% agree.
So let's talk about this game. I'm not sure who. Oh yeah, Reed, you lead off on this one. Bears and Colts.
This
Colts
was
21, Bears 16.
Yeah. First, I'll just go over some of the box score. Caleb Williams, 33 for 52, 363 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Anthony Richardson, 10 for 20, 167 yards, 2 picks. Really ugly game. Jonathan Taylor went off, 23 carries, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. Romo Dunze, his coming out game, 6 receptions, 112 yards. He's here and a touchdown. But this is a real head scratcher for me. I don't understand why the Bears went into this game and had Caleb Williams throw the ball 52 times. The Colts were by far the worst rush defense in the NFL. Wasn't even close, giving up like 200 plus yards on the ground per game. And you would think that they would just feed their trifecta of running backs and Roshan Johnson, Swift, and Khalil Herbert. But no, they passed 52 times. I think this is a coaching blunder. I don't understand how you come into this game and don't just run the ball down the Colts' throats here. Just real puzzling to me from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah, and would you agree, Hogan, that a guy like Matt Eberflus is probably coaching for his football life right now, and this is just egregious. This is coaching 101.
Absolutely. This is absolutely just an insane, like, I don't understand the concept of what's happening in Chicago, where I look at what they've done for their trades and everything they've done in the offseason to make the team the way that it is, to just come out and be this poor across the board the way that they are. And I think a part of it that, is kind of strange is I think they want to show people that Caleb Williams is like the real deal. And Reed, you talked about 53 times. There's no reason for even a veteran quarterback to be throwing the ball that many times. But I think they want people to be like, oh, they made a right choice by taking Caleb Williams. And look, he threw for over 360 yards and a touchdown. Like he's there. But like at the end of the day, you have a great running back system. Like you said, with those three, it should be a 3-headed monster down there. The Colts showed they cannot stop the run last week, letting up 150 yards to Josh Jacobs alone. They need to figure out what they're going to do quickly, or the coaching staff is probably going to be wiped out there, because Chicago should have too much talent across the board to be playing as poorly as they are, especially with that defense. They have a decent defense as well, and it's just not showing on the box score at the end of the day because the offense can't get out of its own way.
And Keenan Allen was hurt as well, and I just pulled up the numbers here. No team besides the Colts was giving up more than 200 yards per carry on the ground going into this game. The Colts were averaging 237 yards allowed on the ground per game, and they come in and throw the ball 52. I think Hogan's hit it on the head. They're probably trying to show people, look, we made the right decision with Caleb Williams, which I don't think anyone is even questioning because he was the consensus number one. It was just shocking. I was very surprised.
All right, guys, I was getting ready to go off on this tangent when Hogan brought that up, and I figured, I'm going to leave it alone. But now it's Bryan Anthony Davis's movie history lesson. So we're going to go back to 1993 with one of my favorite movies. And if you haven't seen this movie, go out and watch it. It's really good. It's called Dave with Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver. If you know it, you know what I'm talking about. There was this small thing where Dave, who's an imposter president because he just looks like him, he's in there and they're trying to save a program for Sigourney Weaver, who is the first lady. So they said, hey, if you balance the budget, you can go ahead and keep it. And there's this just one scene, and he's like, let me get this straight. So we're spending I can't remember how much money, but $5 million on a campaign to make people feel better about the car they just purchased. And when I think of what you just said about Caleb Williams, I think about that scene in Dave. It's probably a throwaway line, but it's something that's always stuck in my head. And that's what you get with a discount, with an imposter program like this franchise, the Chicago Bears. And that's what you're going to continue to get. I talked about the Cleveland Browns earlier in the show. You're going to get moves like that because they got to get gimmickry. And sometimes you don't have to go with the gimmicks. You just have to be who you are and know who you are. And that's what I'm getting out of the Chicago Bears, especially in this game. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a break. We're going to be back right after this with the second half as we talk about a team looking for redemption, a team looking for their first win, and another team that likes they've got a revenge game, and you got to love a good revenge game. We'll be back right after this on the Fans First Football Show, Week 3 edition here on the Fans First Sports Network. Welcome back to the Fans First Sports Network. I am Bryan Anthony Davis. Hogan and Reed. Hogan from Foxborough Frenzy. Nick Hogan. I got to give you, even though you want your last name, you're not Madonna yet. You're not Sting. Reed, you're not Adele yet. So, Aiden Reed as well. I am Bryan Anthony Davis. I'm none of those. That's why I have to give myself 3 names. So I'm the opposite. Anyways, with that being said, we are here. Just Place is on assignment tonight, celebrating his anniversary, and we can't wait to have Jess back here next week. So, gentlemen, we've talked about a lot of games. I love a good revenge game. So we've got to talk about this one. And I don't even know if you know which one I'm talking about, but it's Packers-Titans.
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis. Malik Willis, the last couple of years, was a joke in this league, which nobody should be. But the fact that even though he was the 3rd round pick, not a 1st round pick, it was like Malik Willis wasn't the guy out of Liberty that everybody thought he was. All of a sudden, he goes from a franchise that does not know how to showcase his talents and goes to one of those established franchises like the Green Bay Packers with a good offensive system, and now he's lighting it up. The Packers should have been dead when BSL Reed's team knocked Jordan Love out.
Okay.
And they're thriving. They're thriving. I'm not ripping on your team, Reed. They're thriving, but the Packers should have been dead when he was hurt.
Yeah.
When Jordan Love was hurt. Reed, what do you think about Malik?
Yeah, I mean, Malik Willis, he's doing what he has to do. 13 for 19, 202 yards and a touchdown. Had some great throws today. I think the Green Bay Packers are just such a good organization. Matt LaFleur is coming up with the perfect game plans to survive and advance until Jordan Love comes back. And I think, like you said, Brian, I think all of us expected the Packers to be struggling with Jordan Love out. But, in this game, I think the turnovers just killed the Titans. Levis again with some boneheaded plays. But yeah, I mean, Malik Willis getting the job done here, and Matt LaFleur drawing up the right game plans to beat these teams without his star quarterback. So props to them. A little bit more of the box score here. Will Levis had 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. And, the Packers spread the rushing around today. It wasn't all Jacobs. Emmanuel Wilson had 12 carries for 50 yards. Josh Jacobs had 14 carries for 43 yards. And Jaden Reed has also been getting a couple carries a game ever since Love went down. And he had 2 carries for 19 yards. But, Malik Willis stepping up, being done what needs to be done. And the Packers, again, come out with the win.
Hogan, I want to ask you this. This is not about Malik Willis, what I'm going to talk about next. It's about another guy that's not there. Should have they paid Derrick Henry?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the big thing that you can tell that Tennessee is missing right now is that smash mouth ground and pound game that they relied on for the last almost 10 years at this point. And obviously what Henry did today for Baltimore speaks levels for how that game ended up. But before we get into that, yeah, Tennessee is just they thought they could replace King Henry there with Tony Pollard. I think he didn't even have like 14, 15 yards rushing today. I know I looked at it quickly and I was like, it's not even worth bringing up because of how porous it
2.3
was.
average, 6
Yeah.
carries,
So
14 yards.
which granted goes back to the way that the game ended up going because they played from behind right off the bat where they got down quickly 10-7. Will Levis threw the pick six and then it just
So bad.
sputtered from there at this point. I mean, I'm on record. I clown on the Tennessee as much as I can because, like I said, I always talk about Vrabel. It seems like all the time because I'm still bitter about what they did to him. But this game showed me more about the Packers, absolutely, than what it showed me about the Titans because I know what the Titans are at this point. Matt LaFleur is easily making a name for himself as possibly one of the best coaches in the NFL with what he's able to do week in and week out with the personnel that he has. Like you touched on, both of you saying that they should have been dead in the water the minute Jordan Love went down. Who on their right mind would have Malik Willis winning back-to-back games for the Green Bay Packers at this point in the season? I don't think anybody would. So tip my hat to Matt LaFleur and the way that Green Bay's got that organization running right now.
Yeah, you've got to. This is kudos to the Packers. Spoiler, probably my team of the week just because of the way they're playing, but maybe somebody else. Let's go to the Chargers and Steelers, Hogan. I'm going to let you take this one. Very pleased as a Steeler fan with this game, but the Chargers coming in, I will say this. Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, they had a good game plan. Their players just couldn't get it done against a very tough Pittsburgh defense.
Yeah, I was able to watch a good chunk of this game actually today, and seeing the first half as much as I did, it was neck and neck right up until halftime. I think it was 10-10 going into the half where Herbert and Fields combined at one point did not miss a pass. I think the first like 19 passes of the game where it was just
yes.
And with all due respect, Justin Fields, if you told me that stat line a year or two ago when he was with Chicago, I would have told you you're cracked in the head because he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. That being said, Fields played a great game today. He was a lot of short passes underneath. He ended up throwing for 245 yards, a touchdown, and 1 interception. But they sprinkled in the run as well. Najee Harris getting 70 yards on the ground, and it's a Calvin Austin III, 95 catches or 95 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, they looked really, really well, especially in that second half. They were able to take advantage when Herbert unfortunately got injured. You never want to see the injuries pile up there, but it seems like the Chargers are just falling apart as per usual at this point. Not to, dump on them already, but Herbert went down. I believe Joe Alt went down. Bosa went down. It was just when the Chargers are a healthy team and ready to go, they're extremely dangerous, and they've shown that in the past. But when the injuries creep up the way that they have, it's going to be easy pickings, especially for a team like the Steelers that have a great defense that they can rely on to go after guys that aren't as experienced on there. So yeah, Steelers getting the easier win towards the end, I would say 20-10, but it was definitely an interesting game up until the injuries started piling up.
Yeah, and those injuries, well, look, Justin Herbert was hurt before this game. I don't even know if he really should have gone, but that's but then again, if your last name's Harbaugh, it might as well be Kilmer. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking Bud Kilmer of West Kane and the Coyotes and Varsity Blues, and just like, hey, just shoot them up, get them out of there. That's what Harbaughs do. But yeah, Herbert really was not ready to go in this game, but he still came out and passed the ball well. The running game here, Reed, the running game could not get going. J.K. Dobbins is all world in the first 2 games. Gus Edwards didn't even show up. He had 3 carries, but he didn't show up in this game whatsoever. Pittsburgh was dominant. They did not bail out the Steelers offense, but they just destroyed. It didn't matter whether it was Herbert, Heineke,
Easton Stick,
Sid Luckman. It wouldn't matter who it was. Dan Fouts. It didn't matter. That Pittsburgh defense was why did I say Sid Luckman? But that Pittsburgh defense was on today. What do you see when you see not just TJ Watt, but a whole cast of characters there in Pittsburgh? What do you think when you think about this defense? Can they carry them far?
So, Brian, I know you don't know this, but earlier in this offseason we're scrambling for things to talk about as it goes, sometimes in the podcasting world. We're talking a lot about different teams, and I told my co-host Jay that I think this Steelers defense has the potential to be one of the best in recent memory. Just bringing in Patrick Queen and everyone they already had, and you know what you're going to get with this Steelers defense, and they proved it again today. The Chargers have been gashing people on the ground, but guess what? When Pittsburgh comes to town, it's not going to happen. And the D-line all the way through the linebackers, cornerback, secondary, it's just top to bottom. It's electric. It's just steel curtain. The steel curtain, it might be back. You know what you're going to get with that defense, and it was incredible to watch. And I'm more surprised that Justin Fields had 32 pass attempts and the Steelers had 31 rush attempts. Didn't expect that, especially in a 20-10 win. Fields really impressed me today. One interception, but taking what the defense gave him and making the most of it. Calvin Austin might be his coming out game. That one super long reception he got was great. And
55 yards, but he had a very key first down reception as well for Calvin Austin III. I know there's going to be a lot of people scrambling with their fantasy waiver wires to get CA3.
Yes, for sure.
I will say,
go ahead, Brian.
I got to go off. I had I like my tangents. I had an interview with Calvin Austin III right after his rookie year last year. So he's going into his third season. And I told him, I'm like, you know what? I'm bummed. I picked your number. You picked 19. You ended up with 19. I thought you should have been number 16. He said, why 16? And I explained. Back of your jersey, Austin 3-16. You could have been Stone Cold Steve Austin. You could have been Stone Cold Calvin Austin. He goes, that would have been awesome. I'm like, yes, Calvin, it would have been. I'll have to find that podcast and send it to you. But no,
that's awesome.
Very proud of the Steelers defense here. There's some names on there that you don't know. Nick Herbig came out and had 2 sacks when Alex Highsmith went down. He's a Wisconsin product as well. Just they have some defenders do you realize how many Badgers are on that team, on that defense? Not just TJ Watt, Keanu Benton, who's to be a superstar, and Nick Herbig as well. Those are Wisconsin Badgers on the Pittsburgh Steelers are a very big deal. Let's go ahead and go to the next game, because I can probably gush about the Steelers all day long, and that's not what this show's about. Seattle Seahawks. Look out for these guys. What are they, 3-0? And they're 24-3 against the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins lost another quarterback today in Skylar Thompson. I don't know how long, but this is crazy. The Dolphins being 1-2 at this juncture, where a lot of people thought they could have been a Super Bowl team. Seattle, they're doing something up north. Let's talk about it, Reed.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm still not buying in on the Seahawks. I think they've played not the greatest teams. The Dolphins, obviously, without Tua, are significantly worse. I don't know. Geno Smith still threw 2 picks today. Don't get me wrong. DK Metcalf is still a force to be reckoned with. It's just a big play machine. So fast, strong, getting up there. And Tyler Lockett still kicking. He just never goes away. I feel like he's been in the league for as long as I can remember. But maybe I'm still salty from that Drew Lock win against us last year. But I still think the Seahawks' success has more to do with their opponents than their actual talent level. Broncos, Patriots, Dolphins without Tua. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't want to rag on you, Hogan, and I know Jess will be listening to this later, but I don't buy it. I guess a real test will be next week at Detroit in that dome. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm buying in on the Seahawks. I know they're 3-0, but I don't think that they'll pose any threat to the AFC, if I'm being completely honest.
Hogan, I get what Reed is saying, but when I was talking to my friends about the Steelers today, because they have a very tough second half schedule. But when you start piling wins at the beginning of the season and you get to 3-0 now, but then maybe 6-0 and 7-0 or 6-1, you start believing that you're a better team than the rest of the league thinks you are. I think Seattle is believing it, and I think that makes them very dangerous. And think about the head coach they have there. He's a rookie head coach, but with McDonald there, this is a tough team, Hogan.
They are. And actually, I thought you were going to try and rip on Reed there about the whole starting off strong thing. And then, with the Eagles last year. Sorry, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I didn't want to do Steelers. I can come back with the Steelers the 2 years ago.
No, it was on my mind because they had a rough end of the year. But
I thought that's where you were going. I thought you were like, I'm going to stick it to Reed right here. And
I thought I was going there too.
Yeah,
I was ready to come back.
I was ready to read way too much.
But no, I do have to agree with Reed and his assessment of the Seahawks. Even though they took out my Patriots, I mean, it came down to overtime where we all saw what the Jets did to the Patriots on Thursday night. The Patriots are not a good team right now, and Seattle struggled to beat them. They're not a bad team. I would put them maybe in, the top half of the league at this point. But what they're doing right now with the players they have, the fact that Kenneth Walker III is injured and Charbonnet just taken over the way he has, he looks great in the position he's in starting the last couple of weeks for Seattle. 91 yards today and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that certainly helps. The big thing that I take away from this game, though, is the fact that the Miami Dolphins lose Tua now, consistently over the last few years with his injury problems. They have to have a contingency plan in place there because Skylar Thompson is clearly not the answer. Even before he got injured, he looked like a lost puppy out there. I mean, he got drilled. I think the reason why he got injured was because of that one monster sack I saw. I was like on a 4th down where he just was standing in the pocket, waited way too long, and just got annihilated by the linebacker, whoever came in there. So the Dolphins have to figure out what they're going to do going forward if Tua is not going to be available, because that team is way too talented. They were my pick to win the AFC East at the beginning of the year, and now it looks like it's just going to be the Buffalo show again. But Seattle, the jury's still out. Like you said, they got an interesting test next week against Detroit. Are they the real deal? We'll find out then.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk Raiders-Panthers. This is, the Raiders coming off a huge win last week over Baltimore, coming back from 10 down. Panthers 0-2, benching their quarterback, benching their number 1 overall pick in the draft from a year ago, bringing in the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, and just sticking it to the Las Vegas Raiders in their home, 36-22. Wow. Hogan, tell me about this game.
I looked at this game as it must have been Bryce Young all along, and I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, being like, maybe he doesn't have the talent around him. Maybe it's whatever's happened over the last year or so. Apparently, Andy Dalton's all you need to win a football game, because holy crap, did he come out and light it up? I mean, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I actually saw a stat that he was the first quarterback this year to throw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions, which is just mind blowing. That it's week 3, and it took that long for Andy Dalton of all quarterbacks to do that. But I digress. Anyway, the Carolina Panthers showed up. They knocked the socks off of the Raiders, which I'm sure knocked a whole lot of other people out of survivor picks at this point. Chuba Hubbard over there getting 114 yards on the ground, 55 receiving yards and a touchdown. He looks like a player reborn with Andy Dalton under center. And then your old buddy there, Brian, is Deontay Johnson, 122 yards and a touchdown. I mean, I almost forgot he was in the league until I saw his stat line today, where I'm like, holy crap, he's still playing. But it shows that sometimes all it takes, opposite direction of Miami, where I was just talking about them, where they don't have a contingency plan for Tua, and you take away Tua and you see what happens to them. Look at what the Panthers did by just making a quarterback change. They look like a team reborn. And granted, the Raiders are maybe not the best team to use as a measuring stick, because you got Gardner Minshew over there throwing for just over 200 yards, a touchdown, a pick. And then they had a couple of receivers that did decent today, but they have no ground game to speak of. And they are just so inconsistent between the loss today, the win against the Ravens, and just they're such an up and down team. But maybe Carolina found its answer going forward if Andy Dalton is able to keep having success.
Reed, the Raiders really shot themselves in the foot when they let Josh Jacobs go. And the Raiders were convinced that Josh Jacobs was coming back, so it was a little bit of a surprise to them, but they thought they could continue with Zamir Zeus White, and Addison as well. But this team cannot get anything done on the ground, and now it's affecting them as far as they have good pass catchers there, but not when you're on your back and not when you can't get a running game established. How important is getting a running game established to any offense?
Oh, it's imperative, and that's why I was so frustrated with the Eagles game when we didn't hand Saquon the ball up in the first quarter. But the second worst team after the Colts against the run was the Panthers. They were giving up 199.5 yards per game on the ground going into this, and Zamir White all off season was getting all the hype. Was supposed to be this great back that's going to fulfill Josh Jacobs' role, and he stinks. He does nothing else really about it. He's not great. It got so bad that they benched Minshew for O'Connell. But going back to what Hogan said, it's hard for me to look at this game in any other aspect than, dude, it's Bryce Young. Like, it just has. I mean, Andy Dalton just coming in off the couch, 319 yards, and he looked great. He was slinging the ball out there, absolutely airing it out. And I think the team got behind that and rallied around him. And if I'm the Panthers, I don't see Bryce Young ever succeeding in Carolina. I think he has to go somewhere else. It's the mentality, I think, around the team when he's in. Because how does it make sense? I mean, yes, it's very impressive. Andy Dalton does this. But I don't think it's like Andy Dalton is X amount better than Bryce Young. I think that it's something about the team rallying around Andy and the team not believing in Bryce. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards because, again, I just can't imagine Chuba all of a sudden just randomly has a miraculous game and Deontay Johnson just pops off randomly. Like, you know what I mean? I think the Bryce Young trial just has to be done in Carolina.
And really quickly, just to jump in there, is that this, as a Patriots fan, and we were talking about Drake May a little bit last week, this is why I am wholeheartedly against Drake May and younger quarterbacks getting thrown into the fire too early, because it just shows time and time again. You have your outliers like Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck, but like typically you see guys that go number 1 overall or in the top part of the draft that get thrown into these dumpster fire teams and they just do not succeed because of the situations they're put in. Bryce Young 100% is another, factor to be thrown into that mix with those guys.
Kills your mentals.
I saw the Patrick Mahomes thing week 2 in 2018 when, he sat a year, he had a first week and everyone's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes has arrived. I'm like, well, Pittsburgh against rookie quarterbacks or new quarterbacks, they kill these guys. And I took my nephew to the game. 6 touchdown passes later, I'm like, he's not really a rookie. So, you're right. The sitting helps. We've seen guys. Lamar sat. My gosh, look how long Aaron Rodgers sat. It does
Jordan
not
Love
hurt.
and Jalen Hurts. Both of them.
Jordan,
well.
yeah, it does not hurt to be an understudy to just absorb and then get in there. Like your great backup quarterback in Philadelphia, Kenny Pickett, where he said, "Hey, you don't learn anything by riding the bench." Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And Kenny's not starting. So with that being said, hey, we've got one more game here to cover. This one, injuries kill you. 49ers Rams 27, 49ers 24. Aiden, my goodness.
Yes.
What's going on?
Big Stafford fan. That's my biggest takeaway from this game is Stafford is just a dog. I mean, yes, the Niners were missing McCaffrey. Yes, they're missing Kittle. Yes, they're missing Debo. I think the Rams are more injury-ridden. Not only are they losing Kupp and Puka, their entire O-line is decimated. And to watch Stafford come back in that manner, yeah, they got some help on that punt return, but regardless, it looked like it was going to OT. I'm just such a big Stafford fan. To stay in there, take all those hits, getting pressured every play, and just gritting out a win like that. It's so Stafford-esque. But, we have to cover everything, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention Juwan Jennings. What a game from him. I think a lot of fantasy managers are kicking themselves for not starting him with, obviously Debo and Kittle were out, and Ayuk is still dropping passes after getting all that money. But Juwan Jennings, 11 receptions, 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. What a game from him. Jordan Mason, effective on the ground again. He's great with McCaffrey out 19 carries, 77 yards. Brock Purdy, I've actually been a Brock Purdy hater. I thought he looked pretty good. He was actually creating plays for himself and not just dumping it off. He's made some good throws. But this is just vintage Matthew Stafford. Fourth quarter comeback. It was awesome. I love this game. I also hate the Niners, so it was great to watch.
Hogan, I have so many questions for you about this game, but Reed just talked about how great Matthew Stafford is, and that wasn't going to be one of my questions, but he's a Hall of Famer now, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that he was as successful as long as he was with Detroit, maybe not in the team standpoint, but like for himself with the numbers he put up and what he dealt with week in and week out playing for Detroit at the time that he did, where they were not a good team. And then the fact that it just took him 1 year to go to a new team with all the talent around him and in the Rams facility there and win a Super Bowl that first year. They're no slouches. I mean, the biggest thing is, yeah, they haven't been able to successfully, win games consistently after that Super Bowl due to injuries and everything else. You still can't take them lightly. Week 1 against Detroit came down to overtime, where that was a phenomenal game. During week 1, we were doing our recaps. I remember we were sitting there and I'm going, this is a hell of a game we're watching right now. And, Stafford is that guy. He can get it done for you, even though he's a little bit on the older side now. He still can sling the ball and take away his best receivers with Cooper Kupp and Puka, and he's still going to get it done. I mean, Kyron Williams today put the team on his back with what he did with the 24 carries, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I think he had a receiving touchdown as well in there. So he just did it all today. But this shows me a lot about who the Rams are as a team, that even when they're down 21-7, they're not out of the game yet. Watch out for the Rams.
Nope.
And you know what? I've got a shout out to Tutu Atwell as well. I mean, my
that
gosh.
catch was crazy.
Yeah, not only was that catch crazy, he had 93 yards, and he's a guy that I believe was a second or third round pick from a couple years ago. But with those guys out, Tutu has a chance to make a lot of money and make a big name for himself right now, carrying the team, because with Kupp and Puka out, and I don't know when they are coming back. But another thing I want to say about the 49ers is you hit it on the head, Reed, when you said he made his money, but Ayuk is not getting things done right now. He's dropping passes. Should Pittsburgh fans be glad that he decided to stay? Because the trade was, the San Francisco 49ers went to him and said, we're trading you to Pittsburgh, or you sign on the dotted line. What are you going to do? He signed. Was this if you're the 49ers, do you have buyer's remorse right now?
So I'm going to do the cop-out answer. I've always liked Ayuk as a player. I think, he seems to be a little bit of a head case, obviously with that whole contract disputes, but part of me wants to think that he's just a little rusty from missing all that off-season training. It could go either way, really. I'm being a cop-out right now. I don't want to give a solid opinion on one side or the other, but I think he has been a great player, very underrated in the past, but as soon as you let that get to your head, and I think he might have, as we can see in these first 3 games, he's not himself. He's dropping passes that he's usually so sure-handed, and I don't know what to think. I feel like the Niners will always figure it out, but if I'm Pittsburgh at this point, I'm definitely saying thank God, especially with the emergence of Calvin Austin in today's game. And I think George Pickens has been great. He's kind of been the focus of the offense, so he's getting a lot of attention in the secondary. But if I was a Steelers fan, I'd be happy I dodged that bullet.
Hogan, did we learn anything from Reed in that last 2-3 minutes?
Just a little bit. The whole time he's saying that, yeah, Pittsburgh dodged a bullet. I'm sitting there going, well, us in New England would take Ayuk, and I know we wanted to give him a lot of money because we have no receivers at this point. So I'll take a receiver that drops passes because he can get open, because we have guys that can't even get open. So you win some, you lose some.
All right, so let's go ahead with our teams of the week. Hogan,
Brian, I hate to interrupt, but you're not going to let me rag on the Dallas?
Oh,
I don't think we covered Dallas.
That's right, the Ravens.
Dallas. Oh. I glossed over them. Yeah, I wanted to forget that game because the Ravens beat the Cowboys. But go ahead.
Oh,
it's your show.
I love it. No, I mean, the Ravens almost found a way to blow another game, which is just incredible. But for 3 quarters, Dallas looked terrible, especially Dak. I mean, truly horrendous out of the Cowboys. Somehow managed to. How many points did they put up in the fourth? I think all of them, right? Or 19, I think. 19 points in the fourth. But I mean, Ravens were having their way with him. Derrick Henry, 25 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. This Dallas defense is not looking like the Dallas defenses of past. They got lit up by the Saints last week. Derrick Henry ran all over him this week. And again, the Ravens somehow almost lost this game, but Lamar Jackson made some plays with his feet at the end to seal the victory. But, oh, man, it was just watching those first 3 quarters, just like heaven.
I got to jump in real quick. And, man, I hate giving the devil its due. But one of the most beautiful fakes I have ever seen happen in this game from the Baltimore Ravens. I thought I had no clue that Lamar Jackson did not hand off the ball.
Yeah.
I had no idea that he still had the ball. Everybody was faked out on that play. And next thing you know, here he's going for a very important first down, because next thing you know, Dallas is with Aubrey. I mean, that guy can kick an 80-yarder. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
So he could have very easily tied that game with just a little bit of time, but Lamar pulled it off because they know how to do it. And it's tough, but I've got to be objective. Baltimore did enough early on to just dominate Dallas, and it's hard to come back when you have a guy that can just close you out like Lamar Jackson does, Hogan.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Was Dallas shouldn't have had any reason to get back into this game. They got lucky. The onside kick, I think the first successful one under the new rules and everything else too. I mean, but my biggest thing that I go back to with Dallas is, where is this in the first 3 quarters of the game? They have the talent on the offensive side of the ball to put up points and score quickly. CeeDee Lamb, we all know the generational talent he is. Tolbert is starting to come into his own there. And they have obviously Jake Ferguson coming back from injury where he looked like his old self again. They have talent across the board. And I don't think, as much as people love to say Dak is not a great player, I think he's an above average quarterback. He's just on a snake bitten team with Dallas, but they have the potential to be a decent team, and they just can't seem to get out of their own way week in and week out. And then every year where they give you a little bit of hope where you're like, well, maybe this is their year. Then they, poop their pants in the playoffs like they always do. But the Ravens, the biggest thing from this game for me is that the Ravens have had a really nasty history of letting teams come back at the end of games in the last couple of years, whether it's decisions that Harbaugh makes or the way that the team plays towards the end. When you rush for over 200 plus yards between Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, there's no way in hell that this game should have been as close as it was. So kudos to Dallas for at least making it a game towards the end, but also not a great look for, the Ravens winning the game, but barely winning it the way they did.
I gotta love it because both of you found a way to rip on the Ravens for winning, and I didn't have to do it. So thank you so much. I love it. You guys just made my night.
Knew you would appreciate that. That's why
anything for you, Brian. Anything for you.
Yay! All right, hey, so let's do our teams of the week now. Hogan, who do you got?
I'm actually going to go with the Carolina Panthers. As much as we all talked earlier where this might not have been, the biggest show with their opponent being the Raiders and all, the Panthers absolutely shocked me by getting it done first and foremost, because I just did not see this team realistically winning games this year the way they played the first couple of weeks of the season. Andy Dalton, like I said, not to gush all over him again, but he might be the answer at quarterback there, because if he can put together a couple of string of games like this where he surprises people and gets them wins, maybe my Patriots will get that first overall pick next year, which I'm really hoping for. So Carolina Panthers, team of the week, and hopefully they keep on winning because I want to see my draft stock continue to improve going forward.
Yeah, you know what? I absolutely love that pick. Kudos to you for taking the Panthers. Yeah, that's a good pick. Reed, what do you got?
I got the Minnesota Vikings. As impressive as scoring 34 points is, I think holding Houston Texans to 7 points is even more impressive. I think everyone in the league is raving about this Texans offense, and I just couldn't believe it. Like 7 points, CJ Stroud, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. I know Joe Mixon's out, but still, really unbelievable performance from that defense today. So that is why Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings are my team of the week.
I gotta go with the Packers. I teased it earlier. I'm going to continue to do that. That is such a great story. Like you said, I believe it was Nick who was talking about LaFleur just being the guy. And I really think that he is, as far as coaches go. I don't think he has been handed the keys to a Ferrari there, but he's making that engine hum and he's doing it well. Malik Willis keeping it going. Josh Jacobs, great free agent acquisition, and that's an acquisition that with all of the other moves made in the offseason, it was like, oh yeah, the Packers got Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is for real as well. I really like what's going on in Green Bay right now, and I've never been one to cheer for Green Bay, but that's my team of the week, and I can't see anybody else that I would go with besides the two that you've mentioned. I mean, I love both of your picks. I got to go with Green Bay here.
Love
special shout out actually to the Rams as well, because coming down from 21-7 against the 49ers is no easy task. So if Carolina didn't get that win today, I definitely would have gone with the Rams for doing what they did.
All right, and for Just Place, we'll go ahead and give one more shout out to his Denver Broncos beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think he would have picked his team as team of the week, because nobody's more Denver deprecating than Just Place. We miss you, Jess. Can't wait to see you next week. It's time to get on out of here. Like, Hogan's like, yeah, I guess.
what is his call to? It's Superchargers. I can't do it as well as he did. Yeah, see, Reed's got it. Yeah, we took care of you this week.
By the way,
Jess.
Did you two go look that up?
I did. I looked it up. It's awesome.
Good.
It's awesome.
All right, gentlemen. It was a great show. Thank you so much. Make sure you check out Foxborough Frenzy on the Fans First Sports Network. Make sure you also check out Broad Street LinkedIn. Man, if you want to hear about the Patriots and the Eagles, man, that's the best place to go. Tell all your friends about it too, because if you bleed green and white or green and silver or whatever the hell they are there, if you're blue, red, white, silver, and every other color that you can think of in New England, you got to tell your friends about these shows. Fans First Sports Network, the affiliate here, great shows every single day with so much talent around our affiliate network. Make sure you check all of that out. I'm Bryan Anthony Davis for the Fans First Sports Network, also for the Las Vegas Raiders Insider, but mostly the Steel Curtain Network, where I've been the podcast producer there since 2020. So as far as that goes, check out everything you want to hear about the Steelers and everybody else right here. We've got it. Whatever your sport, Fans First Sports Network has it. For Hogan, for Reed, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. You can call me Bad. Just when you think you got all the answers, we keep changing the questions. All right, with that being said, there's one last thing to say. Gentlemen, you know it. Go football.
Go football.